Hello, my name is Karen Lee, and I am the DDA Public Policy Fellow for Employment First. I'm joined today by Ken Capone, who is the Public Policy Director for People on the Go Maryland, as well as an employee at the Maryland Center for Developmental Disabilities. Both Ken and I are board members of the Maryland APSE chapter as well. We're going to talk today a little bit about the work that has been done in Maryland to increase opportunities for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities to work in competitive integrated employment.
For many years, people with disabilities have fought for equality and full integration into society. While our nation has made important strides in fighting disability discrimination, there are still people with disabilities who still struggle to have access to meaningful employment. You may ask what constitutes as meaningful employment. My answer is that meaningful employment must provide a living wage, where a person with a disability has the ability to obtain the same things as someone without a disability.
What do you mean by the same things, Ken?
This can range from the ability to buy a sandwich to those much larger life decisions like buying a house or a vehicle. I can tell you through personal experience that my life has been enriched through having a job which provides me the ability to have my own house, my own vehicle, and much more.
So Maryland is really a shining example of a state that has done the two steps necessary to increase competitive integrated employment for people with disabilities. And that is to change the system at the same time as building the capacity. And that was done through the Maryland State Strategic Plan for Employment First, but also the legislation that you worked very hard on. And the visioning and stakeholder engagement has created a real opportunity here in Maryland.
Through the Employment First policy and strategic plan, the state of Maryland has joined with other states across the country to say firmly that we believe employment should be the first and preferred option for people with disabilities, regardless of the severity of the disability. There's much work that remains to be done in this area. The fact is, people with disabilities make up the largest minority group in the country. We also have the highest rates of unemployment and underemployment. Being an employment-first state, Maryland is beginning to see the dawn of a new day, where people with disabilities will work alongside their non-disabled peers, and through the wages they earn, they will have the opportunity to purchase homes, vehicles, or something as simple as buying a piece of candy.
I'm going to speak a little bit about the journey of Maryland's Developmental Disabilities Administration to our strategic plan for increasing competitive integrated employment, our Employment First strategic plan. In June of 2015, we gathered a large group of people, 150 people, to talk about where Maryland was with competitive integrated employment. And the result of that was a gathering of about 8 groups around the state to talk about various subjects like finance, capacity building, training, technical assistance, important parts of making change to the state. And we gathered throughout the course of the year, and at the end of the year, we brought back together each of the group's goals, outcomes, and strategic moves, and created a state strategic plan for implementing Employment First. Concurrent to the capacity building work that we were doing with Employment First strategic plan, a group of advocates started to meet to talk about how do we get rid of 14C and the use of sub-minimum wage certificates so that folks can work competitively in the community. And Ken, if you would like to talk a little bit about the Equal Employment Act, I'd appreciate that.
The Equal Employment Act is legislation that will phase out the use of special wage certificates in the state of Maryland over the next 4 years, so providers of service are not allowed to pay people with disabilities less than the applicable state or local minimum wage.
Ken, what was the catalyst or the vision behind starting this legislation?
The proposed legislation had been in the making for a while. Advocates such as National Federation of the Blind, Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, and People on the Go started talking about sheltered workshops / sub-minimum wage and the idea of legislation in 2014. We started researching other states to see where the trend in policy was going. We have always believed that paying people sub-minimum wage is a violation of civil rights.
People are really interested around the country about how this came to be. A lot of folks are wanting something to replicate the work that you have done in their own state. Can you talk a little bit about the real process that it takes to go from an idea to a bill?
We embarked upon the task of campaigning within the General Assembly itself. Thanks to the contributions of Senator Kelly and Delegate Waldstreicher, our coalition was able to move forward with an idea as to who would be receptive to the legislation and who might need a little coaxing. We started walking/wheeling the blueback around the legislator to get sign-ons for co-sponsors. We were amazed how many legislators were not aware of the practice of paying people with disabilities sub-minimum wage. After we met with legislators and explained what the bill would do, we had a lot of co-sponsors.
Tell me a little bit about what's exactly in the final version of the law.
It prohibits new 14C certificates from being authorized to any organizations that don't currently hold a certificate. Those that do currently hold 14C certificates will be able to extend them until 2020. Creates a set of benchmarks and desired outcomes for each year of the phase-out to ensure people with disabilities are given the opportunity for employment in the community and of their choosing.
We found the same thing was true, Ken, with the strategic plan as well, that it takes a lot of people to be on board, and some people may not support it in the beginning, but as we go along. So we were very, very thoughtful in Maryland. It takes a great, great vision, and Deputy Secretary Simons had a real vision for employment first, and we took that vision and brought together a large group of stakeholders and continued to engage people and to do community talks and to meet with providers, meet with families, and continue to work with everybody around making sure that there's an opportunity for voices to be heard. And it takes everybody together just to make something happen. And so I think that the journey of the Equal Employment Act and the journey of the strategic plan were very much the same.